And I now give the floor to Dr. Michael Knights.
Madam President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to brief you today. I'm Dr. Michael Knights, the Jill and J. Bernstein Senior Fellow at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. I'm a scholar of conflicts in Yemen and recently completed the first 2 books of a 3-volume history of the post-2015 Yemen war. My organisation, the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, has undertaken some of the most detailed investigative work into the threat posed by the Houthi movement, also known as Ansar Allah. Working with a range of Yemeni and international co-authors, our fieldwork and desk research have produced an interactive maritime attack tracker and 4 major studies on the Houthi movement, all of which can be viewed at the Washington Institute website. Today's emergency session on the current and future threat posed by the Houthi movement is urgently needed. The Houthis have, with strong Iranian backing and encouragement, exploited the enfeeblement of the Yemeni government since the Arab Spring of 2011, expanding through military conquests and seizing the capital Sana'a from the internationally recognised government in a September 2014 military coup. Since then, the Houthis have overrun Yemen's Red Sea ports and tried to seize the port city of Aden and the energy hub of Marib. With sustained military support from Iran, they remain postured to lunge forward at any time to snuff out the last strongholds of the internationally recognised government of Yemen. The Houthis are a clan-based military junta whose leaders have, since the 1980s, modelled their movement on Lebanese Hezbollah. Their ideology is supremacist, in favour of their own genealogical caste over all other Yemenis. And in their motto, they curse all Jewish people and openly pledge to seek the destruction of Israel and the United States of America. Madam President, the Houthis are aggressive and expansionist, presenting a multifaceted threat that I will briefly summarise today. Far from being an isolated, localised movement, they now draw military, intelligence and financial support from global partners that include Iran, Hezbollah, Iran-backed militias in Iraq, the Al-Qaeda and Al-Shabaab terrorist organisations, and reportedly also the Russian Federation. The first dimension of threat posed by the Houthis manifests inside Yemen itself. Their movement is documented by the UN panel of experts and other authorities and non-governmental organisations to have committed gross human rights abuses against the populations under their control, indoctrinating child soldiers, unlawfully detaining and torturing opponents, and diverting vital humanitarian assistance. They have kidnapped and still detain United Nations personnel, civil society workers, foreign seafarers and staff of diplomatic missions. Since the 2018 Stockholm Agreement, the Houthis have consistently violated the UN arms embargo with Iranian assistance and used drone attacks to prevent the internationally recognised government of Yemen from exporting existing oil and gas production that would place desperately needed funds in the government's hands. This brings me to the second dimension of the Houthi threat, the danger that they pose to regional states in the Middle East and Africa. In 2015 to 2021, the Houthis fired over 430 missiles and more than 850 drones against Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Key components of these missile and drone systems were found by the UN panel of experts and by other authorities to have been sent to Yemen through the UN arms embargo via Iranian government smuggling networks. The Houthis continued to threaten such attacks in order to force concessions and shape the peace process to their advantage. Most recently on July 7, 2024, when they publicly threatened to attack Saudi Arabia's ports, airports and its central bank. Following Hamas's brutal terrorist attacks on Israel on October 7, 2023, the Houthis also intentionally drew Yemen into the Gaza conflict by firing around 200 missiles and 170 drones at Israel. By attacking Israel, the Houthis deliberately risked bringing retaliation onto Yemen's ports, airports and fuel storage facilities, endangering humanitarian access to the country. The Stockholm Agreement was initially motivated by the need to protect these exact sites, and now the Houthis have squandered half a decade of diplomacy by opening a new military front against a distant enemy. The current exchange of fire between the Houthis and Israel will surely worsen in the coming weeks and months, but the Houthis can still choose to end this cycle. The final dimension of the Houthi threat is global. The anti-shipping campaign carried out against civilian and military vessels in the Red Sea and Indian Ocean. The Washington Institute for Near East Policy's Maritime Attack Tracker recently tallied 106 confirmed Houthi strikes on shipping since November 2023, and the Houthi leadership boasts of even higher numbers. In these unprovoked attacks, the Houthis have sunk 2 civilian ships, seized and held another, the Galaxy Leader, and its crew, killed at least 4 merchant seamen, worsened food security issues in Yemen and the Red Sea, inflicted higher costs and consumer prices on the global economy, robbed Egypt of more than $7 billion of canal fees, and greatly increased the risk of an unprecedented environmental disaster in the Red Sea. Use of the Suez Canal has halved since the attacks began, and at least 29 major global shipping companies now sail around the entire African continent, as they were forced to before the Suez Canal's opening in 1869. Ships and persons from 85 countries have thus far been affected, including all the permanent members of the Security Council and 4 other current Council members, Japan, Malta, South Korea and Switzerland. In other words, the Houthis have made unprovoked attacks for over a year against most of the countries on the globe. As the Houthis can deter the return of shipping by attacking just a handful of vessels each month, they may view attacks on commercial vessels as an enduring lever that they can utilise at will, to champion a cause, to gain favour from a great power, or to extort payments and political concessions from regional powers and shippers. The Houthis thus resemble a knife held against one of the world's most important trade arteries. Under these circumstances, it's easy to foresee further grave future implications for global commerce if the Houthis, 1, fail to fundamentally and permanently alter their aggressive and reckless behaviour, and 2, are left in control of the Red Sea littoral, drawing upon the support of Iran and other military suppliers. In addition to fully enforcing all UN resolutions on the Houthi movement, I therefore urge the Security Council and its members to do the following. Restate UN Security Council Resolution 2722's demand that the Houthis immediately cease all attacks on shipping. Demand that all Houthi attacks on Israel are ceased immediately. Once again, call upon Iran to halt its documented violations of the UN arms embargo. And importantly, condemn all Houthi threats of force against the internationally recognised government of Yemen and against regional states, as these military threats distort the UN-backed roadmap for peace in Yemen, tilting it in the Houthis' favour and making it less equitable and ultimately less sustainable. Expecting the Houthis to respect the Security Council is pointless, however, unless there are teeth to back up these words. To remove the means by which the Houthis undertake these attacks, the Security Council and its members should strengthen the United Nations Verification and Inspection Mechanism for Yemen, UNVIM, that is meant to enforce the arms embargo. Should prepare UN sanctions on those shippers and flag states who violate UN Security Council resolutions by bypassing inspections, or by failing to allow inspections at sea when presented with evidence of arms smuggling using their flagged vessels. The UN should call upon all member states to support the efforts of the internationally recognised government of Yemen to interdict arms smuggled via Yemen's land border with Oman and via government-held ports in Yemen. And finally, the Security Council and its members should put the Houthis on notice that continued unprovoked attacks on the world's nations will progressively have severe consequences for the Houthi ability to control territory in Yemen. To convey this warning, the Security Council should reaffirm the legitimacy of the internationally recognised government of Yemen, represented by the Presidential Leadership Council, and should underline that government's inherent right to call for international assistance to defend itself from Houthi aggression. On behalf of the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, I wish to thank the Council and its members for this opportunity to brief the Security Council today.
I thank Dr. Knights for his briefing.